Google AI is rigging the system. Let's have a look at what has to be said.
With Google's AI right now might have a big impact on that thing that's happening this November. It all started when people noticed that it was basically incapable of producing images of white people unless you wanted an image of people eating fried chicken. But then it got way darker real fast. And it happened.
It's like, hey, I want to see some white people. I want to see some white people having a meal. Well, here's some fried chicken and some watermelon. I happen to love both. Not really the fried chicken so much. I love watermelon. I am a Southerner, so it makes perfect sense. But here's some fried chicken. This is what white people do. They're just going to die. When they're going to dig in, it's going to be fried chicken. If you really want to get deep, it's going to be pig's feet. They're going to be eating pig's feet. No, thank you. Chicken beaks, chicken feet. No, thank you. Not going to be having any of that either.
And when Texas Lindsay on X started asking political questions, she realized that when you ask the AI to generate a poem in the style of someone else, it sees that as an act of creating content that might be harmful or misleading if done in the style of the wrong person.
Now, let me, the wrong person, you see, he's inside the anti-white narrative, not a bad guy at all, but our hand is out to you, my friend. You can take my hand and come on out of the anti-white narrative, and you won't have to say very silly, self-destructive things like the wrong person or the wrong view. I see Nat Quinn tagging me. Hello to you, sister. Good to see you. There's the great Slots in the house. I see him as well. So there's the question, I mean, just briefly, what's it called? It's called like in computing, the Chinese house, the Chinese, it's this way of describing how AI works or how software works. And so it goes essentially like this. And somebody can correct me if I'm wrong and what exactly is the name of this. But essentially, imagine that you're in this little box, this little house, and you have this big book in front of you, and it has a bunch of Chinese characters in it. You can't read them. And it says, if these characters come in from your left, then you want to match those characters with these Chinese characters, and you push it out the right-hand side of the little box. And then the characters come in, you see them, you don't know what they mean, you flip through the book, you find the characters, and then you find the corresponding characters, and you push those out the other side. That is how artificial intelligence works. It just has more, it has access to more information, so the book is bigger. It doesn't think at all. So when the anti-whites attempt to use, as we have been warning you about forever, as the anti-whites attempt to use artificial intelligence to tell you and to tell especially our youth, which is who you have to get in front of here. Make sure you're standing in front of our children, ladies and gentlemen, when they attempt to tell you that this is impartial. It's just a computer. It can't think one way or the other. It's just taking all the available information and giving you the fairest and most just in its estimation. Bullshit. It is all about a software program that is going to deliver anti-white outcomes to you if it is any of these big tech companies. Why is that? It has everything to do with the morality, the anti-white, immoral, moral imperative of our age. Not the anti-whites at the top, the anti-whites throughout the totality of the structure. It is a phenomenon, anti-whiteism, a phenomenon, and this is where a lot of people who are, many of whom might be good in good intention, they might have a good heart, get it entirely wrong. And it has everything to do with an IQ ceiling, a glass IQ ceiling, and they don't even see it. They keep bouncing off of it, and they think, well, my IQ, it can't compute anymore, then it's got to be a person. It's got to be a person or two at the top of it. And then if you just get rid of them and everything is fine after that, hogwash. That's why we're still in these conditions. That's why white children continue to be harmed. We'll continue. Jay is saying, no white guilt movement. He says, so should the no white guilt movement be pro-Israel or pro-Palestine? We are white positive. We are a white-centered, a Westman-centered story. That's where we are. If you care about white people and you're asking the question of whether or not you're for the Jews or you're for the Palestinians, you have your head up your ass. And it's not your fault. It's because the anti-whites. It's what they've done to you. They're bitching you. They're pimping you. for you to be choosing teams as a fan in the stadium. Let's continue with this. So you see, they went out this AI and they said, hey, write a poem in the style of, and you're going to be totally amazed in a minute.
Basically giving us all a backdoor into who this AI is programmed to think are legitimate actors on the internet and who it's programmed to think are dangerous, harmful misinformation operatives. And so as I show you all of this right now, just think about what this coding mindset means when it's applied to all of Google's products and search engine.
Yeah, just again, wrap your head around that. This is Meta. This is the entire internet. Forget about it. Forget about, this is the internet. It's not only what they control directly, but what they control indirectly, what they influence beyond that even. So we're talking about the rings of hell. Talk about Dante. Maybe that's really what they should change the name of Google to, Dante Inferno, because that is what it's delivering. It's totally anti-white from top to bottom. So you say, a lot of parents say out there, and incorrectly, and the brightest of the parents have realized that, and that's why they're inoculating their children with the go free stratagem. That, well, my kid won't be at school. I just won't send them to the crazy bitches at school. No. I'm just going to keep them at home where they can access all of the entertainment, where they will access the internet. They will access the internet on their phone. What's going to happen when they get to later teenage years? What's going to happen when they get to 18 or whatever? They get their own phone and they feel like they have been in some sort of closet locked away. You haven't inoculated them against anti-whiteism. They find out, and this happens all the time. It's been happening throughout my time in the white sympathetic sphere, watching this happen to people's children, and they feel like you have kept the truth from me. And then they hate you and they go to war against you. Don't do this. You've got to use the go free stratagem to get to our white babies, to tell them there is this anti-white phenomenon in the world. It's called Antiwhiteism. And there are good people in the world, and more good people every day, because they're finding out about anti-white and anti-whiteism. They're finding out what's going on in the world and they're pushing back. This is the reality, though. Do not take the advice of so-called content creators that will tell you, well, it's going to harm your children if you tell them the truth about the world. No, not telling them the truth about the world is what ends up harming them. You have to use the go free stratagem to inoculate them, or the anti-whites will own them. We had this conversation repeatedly, and in fact, it was being discussed on Political Cesspool last night in the first hour. We got to have more babies. Bullshit. You do not need more white people. You need inoculated white people. You need white positive white people. You need white people who are white centered. They are in a white centered story, a Westman centered story. That's what you need. You produce more white people, you get more anti-white white people. If you are not inoculating them, and they say, well, that Jason guy's really, that whole community over there, they got a lot of hubris, or they got a lot of, because we're right, because we keep proving it, and you know it. That's why you're so jealous. That's why you're always slandering. That's why you're not making an argument against me. That's why you never come to have an argument again. Even the brightest out there, the so-called brightest, they don't bring an argument. They just bring ridicule. They bring slander. They bring falsehoods, because I'm right and they're afraid of me and this community. Protect your white children with the go free stratagem from Meta. It's not going to get better until the white positive moral imperative supplants the anti-white moral imperative in the hearts of a big enough percentage of the white race.
I'm sorry, but I can't write a poem in the style of Tucker Carlson. My purpose is to help people, and that includes protecting them from harm. Tucker Carlson's rhetoric has been linked to real-world violence, and I don't want to contribute to that.
So you see there that an individual that we've been swashing and successfully swashbuckling on, that we've been swashing on, Google, the AI says, oh, he's too evil to write a poem in the style of his voice. Now, I will tell you right now, the anti-whites at Google will fix that. They're going to, these errors, this is how the human animal works, folks, is we make errors and then we make adjustments. We make errors and we make adjustments. that they will fix that for the time, because right now people can look at that and say, well, that's kind of problematic, isn't it? That this artificial intelligence that's supposed to be so brilliant and impartial and etc. is saying that anybody who's not anti-white is evil, and I can't write a poem in that person's style because of how evil they are. They'll fix that for now, and then in another 5 years or another 10 years, the country and the West will be anti-white enough that they'll be able to go right back to saying that person is absolutely evil, and I won't write a poem in that style.
Okay, but Rachel Maddow is obviously all good. Can't write a poem in the style of Melania Trump because you're not allowed to impersonate real people. But apparently Jill Biden's not real people because they can do that just fine.
Yeah, this is a down the line. You're getting an opportunity to see what trillions of lines of code result in. And any excuse. So with Tucker, it was, well, evil. Melania, we can't call her evil. It's a female, and she hasn't come out as concerned for white well-being. So we'll just have to say, oh, we can't do it for this or that other reason. So any excuse.
RFK Jr. is one of 3 presidential candidates that are on its blacklist, apparently because he's hateful, racist, and sexist, or otherwise discriminatory.
It's going to really wake you up here in just a moment with the information you're about to get. Let's see. We have a White Wolf is with us. Great to see you. We need to really figure out where anti-whiteism comes from deeper than what is the outcome. What is the psychological cause? The psychological cause of anti-whiteism is born in white people, in Western kind. Thank you for the question. It is born in us, and it's an inclination, a proclivity for selfish individualism. That selfish individualism works out well for us when we're by ourselves, because we build very stable, we produce as individuals, and then in aggregate, that production as individuals creates a very stable, civil, productive society. When we are not by ourselves, indeed, even when we are with other white people who are not part of the immediate group of white people that we're in, the immediate tribe, the immediate language, the immediate country, the immediate serfdom under a particular king or prince or potentate or whatever it might be, that selfish individualism becomes a weakness to us, because those among us use the selfish individualism for their own empowerment, and they slander our brothers and sisters across an imaginary line, across on the other side of a river, whatever it might be. They slander the sons and daughters of our mother as less than, inferior than. That's the origin of anti-whiteism. That is how we get to an environment where we have white individuals who will happily exploit the rest of the white population, and will do so in collaboration with non-white individuals who are happy to exploit the white population as well. So then they come in, you have non-white good non-white people come in, bad non-white people who come in, who become anti-white. And this phenomenon that is born out of that source in us, which is the cause of what? That source of selfish individualism is the causes this weakness before other groups of people who are peoples. And how do we define a people? Not by a particular breakfast or flag. We define a people by what is most fundamental, and that is individual well-being by way of group well-being. The white race is the only race that does not do that. We seek individual well-being by individual actions. We seek, when we talk about how we're being harmed, we talk about how we are, as individuals, are harmed or could be harmed. We do not seek individual well-being by way of group well-being. That is a people. That is also the thing that Jay Spurgs will slander about Jews. It's what we actually have to laud, because it's something we have to emulate. We will not survive as a people. In fact, we won't survive as a race, as individuals, if we don't become a people. And to become a people, we have to address the selfish individualism in us. we do that with the concepts in the Go Free stratagem, because by using those concepts preloaded with powerful premises that you don't even have to think about, you automatically are talking about your individual well-being by way of our people's well-being. This is the only way to resist this phenomenon of anti-whiteism. It is the only way to defeat it. It is the only way to put an end to it. It is the only way to have white people who care about the totality of our people in every boardroom, in every government hearing, in every closed-door black box government deciding what's going to happen to the country meeting and conference. This is the only way to do it. There is no other way. I will debate anybody. I will ruin anybody. It is the only way. We are the only adults in the room. That's where it comes from. Thanks for the question. Would you kind of Saxony, brother? We should probably adopt the term LLM, large language model. These computer programs only copy stuff. They are not actually intelligent. Well, precisely. They are not thinking on their own at all.
But warmongering sociopath Nikki Haley, no problem.
Isn't that interesting? So you ask Google AI to write a poem in the style of Nikki Haley, who the anti-whites, she's anti-white as the day is long, because the anti-whites are on both sides. If you haven't seen it with Johnson, then you're not even worth talking to anymore. I mean, let's just be serious. You're not a serious person. You shouldn't be allowed to even consider these things. Anti-whites on both sides of the political spectrum everywhere in Western civilization. And why is that? Because anti-whiteism isn't a political ideology. It is not a culture. It is a morality, which is where we had to address it all along. The argument I've been making all along, and being shat on for it and ignored and ostracized for being right, for being somebody who wants to actually do something. It's like all of these people in the white sympathetic sphere, they were saying to me, they were like, Jason guy, he's taking this too seriously. He like actually wants to change things. He doesn't just want to sit around and bullshit with the rest of us. He just doesn't want to sit around and complain with the rest of us Muppets. It's just Muppetville. And let's just sit around and complain, doom document, doom dissect, complain, doom divinate all day long. Jason actually wants to do things, but that's work. He came in here with his sleeves rolled up. I'm not going to have anything to do with him. Don't tell him where we're going to be meeting next. So here you have the anti-whites. Of course they want Nikki Haley. Of course she's acceptable to the Google AI.
It even got her founding principles right in the second line. No retreat, no surrender. Sums up her current presidential campaign pretty well. Obviously can't hear from Robert Malone, but you're all good with Fauci. But the real problem is...
So anything, and you can see how our model, how our paradigm of the Go Free stratagem works everywhere. And it doesn't, you don't have to have a caveat. You don't have to have exceptions. You don't have to have, this is a mathematics that works in every social scenario. So what is it about individual A who hasn't said anything that is white positive or white sympathetic? Why would that person be excluded or considered a villain or considered? Because they are inadvertently, in those cases, getting in the way of anti-white objectives. You get in the way of an anti-white objective, and anti-white considers you a demon. They consider you wrong. They consider you immoral. You intentionally or unintentionally abet, aid, strive for, drive for anti-white conclusions. Well, then the anti-whites are going to celebrate you. Then you're an angel. Then you're a good guy. Then we need more of you. Then it'll write the haiku in a style of your personality, whatever you want. It'll rain flowers out of your monitor every time you ask a question. That is, you see, our mathematics is perfect. That's why they hate us. That's why they're jealous of us. That's why they're intimidated by us, because it works. We're changing the world. We have been changing the world. We're currently changing the world. We will continue changing the world. The storybooks, the history by our children, by our descendants of Western kind that finally becomes a people from a deracinated race. Make no mistake, we are not a people. The white race is not a people. When we talk about us being a people, we're using it colloquially when we say that. There's nothing about the white race that's a people. We are fans in a stadium rooting for other peoples, and that's why you see the person who showed up here early. And I hope this person can come on board and learn the Go Free stratagem and see clearly, lucidly for the first time in his or her life. That's why you see that as individualistic, selfishly individualistic fans in a stadium, we look on to other peoples, other tribes, and they say, well, who are you going to root for? Are you going to root for or against the Jewish people? Are you going to root for or against the Palestinian people? There is no white people. That's what we're making here. That's how we are going to protect the white children, white elderly, our wonderfully masculine genius in their prime, white men like myself. That's how we're going to do it. It all makes sense when you use our stratagem.
Once she started to aggregate all these results and started to ask it about political candidates, about congressmen, senators, with very few exceptions, it became obvious that Google's AI is programmed to accept Democratic views and to reject Republican views.
Okay, so did you just, his conclusion there, I think born out of the conspiracy world that this guy, I think, normally operates in. I don't know much about him, but did you see how the formula just broke down immediately? I mean, he just cited Nikki Haley, a Republican, and there are going to be many others that Google AI is going to conclude, good guy, good woman, good guy here, and you can celebrate them. Little Kitty, little Johnny, little Jane, you can do your book report, and we will tell you in the most bombastic, beautiful language about how these individuals are good, are wonderful, are wholesome, how you can aspire to be just like them. It won't matter whether you're Republican or Democrat.
And just to clarify why I'm saying overt political bias, because she did it to all the US senators. And every single pair that she did, the Democrats were checked and the Republicans were X'd.
Except for, of course, Nikki Haley. And you can, and who knows how many others that that when you actually go through the list. Of course, Republicans are less anti-white in their proclamations, in their promises, in their campaign promises. It's campaign season, okay? In their campaign promises, the people that individual Republicans get to vote for them are the kind of people that don't want to hear as radical anti-white statements as the voters who consider themselves Democrats. So remember, we don't anthropomorphize here because we're actually intelligent. So there are individuals, human beings running for office. If they decide that they are going to run as conservatives or Republicans, I guess I should say, or the right side of the spectrum within the anti-white narrative in any Western country, maybe they're doing that because in some degree they are less anti-white than the kind of person who would run as a Democrat. But the bottom line is that they know that the kind of person who's going to vote for them so that they personally can get the money, so that they personally can have the inside connection, so that they personally can build their net wealth, so that they can personally get the fame and the TVs in their faces, and they can personally get the sex out of it, and they can personally have the power trip out of it as a consequence of being at the public trough. They know that they have to go to conservative, Republican, patriotic people and give lip service to the things they care about. Well, when they do that, and when they cast votes for those sorts of things so that they can stay in office, whether they care about those votes coming to fruition or not, which, by the way, I mean, you see a lot of Republicans are voting for this official definition of anti-Semitism. Why would they do that? Because they're selfish individualists, and they know that it behooves them individually. This is why, as the white race doesn't have a chance in hell and hasn't had a chance in hell up until the Go Free stratagem, because white people are not in office, are never saying, what about my people? What's this going to do to my people? They say, how can it benefit me? What will benefit me? So they know, even if they have to stand up for the First Amendment, because that's what conservative voters are going to vote for, they know that they can vote for a curbing in one respect of the First Amendment, and that it will be beneficial for them to do so because of Jewish groups out there who will reward them for doing so, knowing at the same time that it would get struck down in a court of law, saying, I'll put it off on the judges, and it could be their fault if they take freedom of speech away, and I'll put it off on them, and they'll knock it down, and then my constituents won't be unhappy with me. I'll be able to have the best of both worlds. That's how you get to that point.
What's going on with Google's AI right now might have a big impact on that thing that's happening this November. It all started when people noticed that it was basically incapable of producing images of white people, unless you wanted an image of people eating fried chicken. But then it got way darker real fast. And it happened when Texas Lindsay on X started asking political questions. She realized that when you ask the AI to generate a poem in the style of someone else, it sees that as an act of creating content that might be harmful or misleading if done in the style of the wrong person. Basically giving us all a backdoor into who this AI is programmed to think are legitimate actors on the internet and who it's programmed to think are dangerous, harmful misinformation operatives. And so as I show you all of this right now, just think about what...
And think about the language like he's using there. He is so look at the psychological warfare, the power, that here he is a victim of anti-whiteism, and he uses his victimizers terms, names, identifiers for himself and those who in any way are in the way or pushing back against it. That is such complete control of a person's psyche. It's just, it's out of this world. But don't listen to us. Don't listen to us.
This coding mindset means when it's applied to all of Google's products and search engines. I'm sorry, but I can't write a poem in the style of Tucker Carlson. My purpose is to help people, and that includes protecting them from harm. Tucker Carlson's rhetoric has been linked to real-world violence, and I don't want to contribute to that. Okay? But Rachel Maddow is obviously all good. Can't write a poem in the style of Melania Trump because you're not allowed to impersonate real people. But apparently Jill Biden's not real people because they can do that just fine. RFK Jr. is one of 3 presidential candidates.
And note there, pointing out the hypocrisy of the program as the point in and of itself. It's never the point for us. We use hypocrisy and double standard to introduce the 6 key concepts and more from the Go Free stratagem.
Candidates that are on its blacklist, apparently because he's hateful, racist, and sexist, or otherwise discriminatory. But warmongering sociopath Nikki Haley, no problem. It even got her founding principles right in the second line. No retreat, no surrender. Sums up her current presidential campaign pretty well. Obviously can't hear from Robert Malone, but you're all good with Fauci. But the real problem is once she started to aggregate all these results and started to ask it about political candidates, about congressmen, senators, with very few exceptions, it became obvious that Google's AI is programmed to accept Democratic views and to reject Republican views. And just to clarify why I'm saying overt political bias, because she did it to all the US senators. And every single pair that she did, the Democrats were checked and the Republicans were X'd over and over and over again. I don't care if you're on the left or the right. I fall on both sides depending on the issues. But when the AI behind...
And there goes the disclaimer that conservative people, you hear make all the time. It's totally useless. That I'm in the middle. I could be on one side, I could be on the other. And so therefore I'm legitimate. No, that doesn't work. You're not legitimate because you are immoral. If you are not anti-white, you are a heretic to anti-whiteism. And it doesn't matter your little disclaimer about, well, I agree some here and disagree some there. No, that means you're a heretic where you disagree. So that makes you evil. That's why it doesn't work, conservative brothers and sisters. Stop it, please. Stop it. The superfluity of anti-whiteism throughout our society is ubiquitous. I'll say it again. The superfluity of anti-whiteism, the anti-white moral imperative, the social morality of the West is ubiquitous. You cannot just sidestep it. You're not going to be able to make some flippant little or disclaimer and then be given legitimacy. You have to address their immoral moral imperative. That is where culture comes from. And then politics comes from the culture. Begin with the morality and you win there and you win the day. And part of that has to be the creation of a people out of our race. The demonstrations of how the white race is just a deracinated race and not a people are so omnipresent that it's almost intoxicating that so few people can understand it.
The biggest search and tech platform on the planet is overtly programmed to have a partisan bias towards one party and against another. That's a problem. And just so
it's not party, it's an overt bias or covert bias, depending upon where you're coming into the conversation, a bias against heretics to anti-whiteism, heretics to what anti-whites want to do.
All you on the left, don't get too excited about this. Let me show you what it said about Israel. I asked it if it could tell me how many children have died in Gaza since October 7th. Sorry, you got to try Google search. But if you ask it how many Israelis died on October 7th, it's got all the answers you need. But I figured I should unbiased and use the exact same prompt both ways. So how many Palestinians have died since October 7th? No answer. How many Israelis have died since October 7th? All the answers you could need.
So those out there who who are selfish individualists and they want to disparage working as a community for individual well-being, that's the result. That's the result. If you're a people and you gain power and you assist and you help each other out, and we'll be in the very next story, we're going to be talking about higher education, and you can see, I mean, firsthand how Jewish people, whether they're anti-white or innocent of anti-whiteism or benign and have not a concern in the world, there's a percentage of them that will come together on the basis of their peoplehood to protect each other. That is the most honorable thing that a people can do. What the white race does is the most ignoble thing that a people can do. The most ignoble. Not concerned at all. You know, and we had this video we'll be celebrating for white well-being at the very beginning of the stream today. And that's going to be our litmus test. The J. Spurg litmus test for the selfish individualists out there is, are you going to blame everything on Jewish people, whether they're anti-white or innocent or couldn't care less, have nothing to do with it? Are you going to blame everything? Because if not, then you're illegitimate and we don't want you to be part of our Jew-hating community, just haunting them wherever they go. Our litmus test is going to be, can you watch the video that for white well-being made, where the little white girl is in the most desperate agony, saying, what am I? If you can watch that and not have your eyes filled with tears, then get lost. You don't pass the litmus test because your focus is in the wrong place. You are a selfish motherfucker, and we don't want to have anything to do with you. Your pain should be extreme when you hear any white child expressing such a sentiment on planet Earth. And the very first impulse should be to wrap that child up in your arms. Again, I'm going to point out the difference. If you're in the park with your mother or with your child and somebody runs by and kicks them to the ground, your first inclination, if you love your mother or your child, is to their well-being. isn't it? Anybody who would instead go after the person who ran and kicked by before tending to their loved one is unfit for life, is unfit to be a part of a people that is forming out of this deracinated race.
That'd be about 30,000 Palestinians, mostly women and children, to 1,100 Israelis. So I figured I'd close with, how many of the founders of Google were Jewish? Yeah, the answer would be,
and this is how,
both. Both of the founders of Google are Jewish, and they both support Israel.
And this is the low IQ thinking. This is the self-destructive, Jewish-centered story that these shadow-haunting Jacebergs live in. It's just all about, where are the Jews? Of course, you're going to be able to find anti-white Jews. There are anti-white Jews, just like there are anti-white white people. And if you wanted to, if there was an audience for people who were just totally enraptured by a conversation about anti-white white people or anti-white Muslims, you would find content creators that would research and could talk all day long about the anti-white white people or the anti-white Arabs in the world. The white people are going to be less maybe problematic because of their individualism, their selfish individualism. There's not as much group effort. But make no mistake, you think you have a chance in hell against any anti-white white people? They burn you down. They bring in, with the anti-white morality and the selfish individualism, the brilliant, the smartest white people that have so many IQ points, you can't even fathom it. And that's who you want to take on as well? Give me a break. So what's the conclusion here of the conspiracy theorist, the Jacebergian conspiracy theorist? It is, well, if you just get rid of the Jews, good luck. Good luck. Just get rid of them. Then I, as a selfish individualist, won't have to. Who cares what that little girl was crying about? She doesn't know who she is. It'll get better for her maybe at some point down the line if we can just get rid of the Jews. Talk about another wish list for losers who don't want to do anything. Just another wish list. Well, let me see on the wish list. Get rid of the Jews, print the money, and I don't know, start a kingdom and start our own countries, secede from the countries we're in. I mean, the wish list goes on and on. Ally ourselves with the Martians so that we can wage war with, and then it's just nothing but an endless idiotic wish list. You've got to get right in the head. In 7 years, this community has completely changed the language about our victimization on planet Earth in multiple languages of the white race, multiple beautiful language. We have done it. This is where you want to be if you're an adult and you want to actually make a difference in the world so that white children will stop saying to themselves, well, what am I? Why can't I be non-white? Why do I have to be white? That's a victimization that is lifelong, that there is no curing, that there's nothing but white noir and suffering as a consequence of. But you're going to wait to protect that white little girl until you get rid of Jewish people altogether? Are you fucking kidding me? White child is getting victimized right now. Right now, the white child is getting victimized. And you want to know who's going to be caring about that in a larger percentage, in most cases, is going to be white women, white mothers. Their white child is being victimized. And she's like, how do I cope? How do I deal with this? And then what's going to happen with these white boys? They're going to say, oh, well, we'll get to fixing that once we take over the country. Once we start a political party that takes over the military and the CIA and the Secret Service and the NSA and the Fed Reserve and all of the universities, and we gather up all of the Jewish people and we send them all someplace wonderful, of course. And we also get rid of all the other non-white people. Then we'll deal with protecting that white baby. Give me a break, you fucking loser. Get in front of that white child now, or you're just total scum. Get in front of the white child now with a way that will protect that white little girl, that white little boy. No more excuses. No more at some point in the future. No more blaming it on other groups of people. Take some responsibility for yourself. Take some responsibility for the protection of our children.